grant between St. Louis County and Franconia Minerals, and Itasca County is also involved in this joint powers agreement, and I would move it.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Administrator Mitchell, could you please frame the issue?
Mr. Chair, on this particular matter, I'd ask St. Louis County Auditor Don Dicklich to come up to the table. And Don has been involved in this one with the various parties, and ask Don to give you the background of his discussions and the purpose of the resolution.
Auditor Dicklich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to begin by passing out one of the appendixes of the final agreement. And it's exciting to have the opportunity to be a part of this project, even though this is just actually a pass-through of state dollars through St. Louis County to Franconia. In 2006, the Minnesota legislature provided $11.5 million, $11 million of which is for the Minnesota Steel Project, as we're all aware of, in Grand Rapids for infrastructure, etc. In Nashwauk, in Itasca County. And the way the legislation was written is that the $11.5 million would go to Itasca County for these mineral projects. Of the $11.5 million, $500,000 would be for another mineral-related project other than the Minnesota Steel Project, somewhere in the taconite relief area. Well, over the course of a couple of years, it's been determined that Franconia Minerals is going to be the grantee, ultimate grantee for those dollars. And that's why I'm passing around the work plan for the Phase 1 and Phase 2 work that Franconia will be doing in mineral doing drill holes, etc. Exploration, thank you. And mineral development. And it's a non-ferrous project, which makes it that much more exciting. But as you can see from the work plan, that Franconia will be investing $13.4 million roughly in St. Louis County for this project. And the legislature, in its wisdom, saw fit to provide $11.5 million to the 21st Century Minerals Fund. And this is just a pass-through, as I say, for St. Louis County. But because this project is in St. Louis County and the money actually was granted to Itasca County, we have to have a joint powers agreement with Itasca County and a grant agreement with Franconia Minerals in order to get that money to the mineral company. So if anybody has any questions, that's pretty much the base of it.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that update, Auditor Dicklich. Any discussion? Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chair Nelson. You know, I know that this creates an opportunity for a lot of jobs, both construction and ultimately mining jobs, and it's a potentially great project. And I guess I would just hope that we do our best on our due diligence to protect our land, our water, our air in the area. Commissioner Cronin and I were at a wonderful event that you mentioned already, Iconics, groundbreaking out in the old cement plant in West Duluth. You know, that has been a dormant brownfield for the last 30-some years. And, you know, now that soil is going to be treated and there'll be a new plant there, which is great. But I think we don't want to see situations like that, right, where land lays fallow and poison for many, many years. So we want to be careful, and I guess I would just raise that.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Neill. Auditor Dicklich.
Mr. Chair, just a comment regarding that. This particular development, this Birch Lake site, this would be an underground mine. So although you still have to be concerned about appropriate mining safety and environmental processes, it's not quite the same factors and concerns that you have with an open pit mine. So I just make that point.
Thank you, Auditor Dicklich. I would also like to point out one thing that I think is very important as the chair of this committee, but here in northeastern Minnesota, the environmental protection measures that are taken before allowing any industry to locate here for what is really truly critical mining activities, it is 100 times greater than any place else on this earth of ours that we all have to inhabit. I feel a lot better about a project in the United States than when I hear about a project taking place in mainland China or in one of the Soviet bloc, old Soviet bloc nations that have now achieved independence, because the fact of the matter is that those emissions that most greatly affect our waters are coming from other areas. So when we do these here, we're taking the steps, and I feel very confident in the EPA and in the MPCA to oversee these. It is, I could only wish that we could have them perform the same functions throughout the world, because certainly we could make some major steps if that could occur. Commissioner Fink, Commissioner Rocker.
Thank you. Just a couple of points. First, I think it's the Franconi. Franconi is not the only one who is drilling and trying to get core samples up in this particular area on Birch Lake. There are 2 other companies who are doing the same thing. It turns out that Franconi just seems to be a little bit further ahead than everybody. And last year they did invite the county board as individuals to come and visit the site, the drilling site. I took advantage of that and then spent some time afterwards looking at the drawings and the plans. And Mr. Dicklich is absolutely right. This is an underground mining process, and they will do vertical drilling or horizontal drilling as well, pretty much using a similar technology for drilling for oil and water at this particular point in other parts of the country. So it's going to be it is a very interesting and significant development. And we did have an opportunity to look at some core samples, and surprisingly enough, for those who don't know, I came out of the non-ferrous industry, metals, aluminum, zinc, and lead to be exact. Understanding some of that stuff, so the core samples, they were easy to read core samples that are being looked at all the time. I did want to make a couple of interesting comments that's come up as we talk about the movement from iron ore to non-ferrous metals. Most recently, I read a document that was put out by the mining industry who argued in the early portion of the document that they wrote that non-ferrous metals and was synonymous with strategic metals, and I would argue that that's probably not the case when you understand that zinc and lead and aluminum and every other metal except something that has iron in it is non-ferrous. And the second thing that was interesting, as you talk about the environmental portions of this thing, there was a report that was released last week, I think it was on Wednesday, about the particle, the air emissions that are occurring throughout the country, and where various cities that have industrial activities and communities around those cities have activities as related to particles in the air. And while the Twin Cities was listed on the map, each St. Paul and Minneapolis in their own right, so was Duluth. But it was the only city that was listed to have no particle emissions in the entire report. I thought that might be important for you to, as we look at where we're going and how we are in developing environmentally up here and the kinds of things that are going on. And for those who don't get a chance to see those reports, it is, or hear about those reports, those are the things that we ought to be standing up and just cheering about as it relates to development in the area, continued development, and our environmental worthiness. So just a point.
Thank you, Commissioner Fink. Commissioner Rocker.
Thank you, Chair Nelson. I hope I can get this out here. I got a little frog in my throat. But as most of us know, over the last century, virtually every square foot of northeastern Minnesota has been drilled for one reason or another to ascertain what the minerals are subsurface. And the world has a very ravenous appetite for resources these days, and we're very fortunate that our legislators, both past and present, had the foresight to set aside dollars within the taconite tax relief area in minerals the Minnesota Minerals 21st Century Fund. Senator Johnson had a big hand in that early on, Governor Perpich years ago, and as a result, we have these dollars to continue to invest in this exploration and research that is hopefully going to yield good jobs and dividends, and at the same time we have the assurances that the environmental protections are going to be in place to assure the quality of our life in this region for those of us not only who live here 12 months out of the year, every year, but those who visit us and are buying a great deal of property in our region. So I think we have to raise the comfort level of all folks so that they realize that this is an essential activity that has to take place, but that it can be done, as Commissioner Nelson pointed out, in a very environmentally friendly and safe way to preserve resources for future generations. So just had to say that.
Thank you, Commissioner Rocker. I thought you were going to go one more step there, and
That's your turn.
To also state that all of these core samples, for those commissioners and those of you that are not aware, in Commissioner Rocker's community of Hibbing, the DNR has the requirement is that each and every core sample be duplicated, so that the state gets a copy of basically each and every core sample that is taken throughout the entire region. And for anyone who hasn't had an opportunity to go view that library, it is truly amazing what is it contained within that library of stone in Hibbing, Minnesota, right over near the park. That was a very good move on behalf of our state legislature. In fact, at the time to require that, because it opens it up for the competitive bidding process as well. Commissioner Rocker.
Well, as you pointed out, there's a wealth of information to companies that are looking to find out, so they don't have to re-drill, and they can get the information they need. And as a youth, we used to ride our bikes past there on our way to the Little League field, and of course we didn't know what it meant. We always associated it with some kind of dental activity. So we used to go an extra block and stay out of the way so we didn't have to go.
Thank you for that bit of levity, Commissioner Rocker. Commissioner Crone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if the others of you received this email a while back. I think it was regarding this particular outfit. But they said that they had the first core that they brought up was 29 feet, and they were pretty excited about that. But then they did a second drilling, and it came up with a core of like 300 feet, and that they thought that this would be probably the biggest deposit of its kind in the world. And I think it was this outfit. Was that not correct?
And the purity is tremendous.
Yeah, that's an important point.
Commissioner Fink.
One of the things that tends to happen in many cases with copper, not generally other particular ones, but with copper, there's usually some sulfur included, or at least a fairly substantial amount of sulfur included. And these samples have just rare particles of sulfur in it, so it really is an interesting development.
Thank you, Commissioner Crone and Commissioner Fink. Commissioner Forsman.
Thank you, Chair Commissioner Nelson. Just a couple of comments since things are being said here and hasn't been said yet. But since most of this is either in adjoining Lake County or in St. Louis County in the district I serve, is that I spent a lot of time at different meetings and reading these emails and these reports. These deposits, all the way from starting in the old brownfield sites within the old LTV sites, which currently are looked at with polymet, Tecumseh has property in there, Franconia Minerals, and if you remember about a year ago, we had Ernie Lehman from Franconia Minerals present in front of us. In addition to that, we have the just recently have Duluth Metals has been up in actually in Lake County, but they just currently made an agreement with the city of Ely to put their headquarter offices in the Ely Industrial Park. They bought 2 lots there. This is all brand new stuff. There's, in fact, one of my wife's co-workers is going to be moving over there as a secretary, as a permanent within this facility with Duluth Metals. All of these metals are strategic metals. I mean, if you look at, and probably one of the things that the public doesn't always think about is what their computers are made of, what their TVs are made of, what their cell phones are made of, and all of the things that we use today that we didn't use, a tremendous amount of these metals. And it doesn't take a lot of metals, but these strategic metals, they say that one of the statements that was made, and I don't remember if it was Polymet that said it or if it was Ernie Lehman that said it, is that that what typically the value of a trainload of taconite pellets would be equal to a pail full of some of these platinum gold minerals as far as value, but yet they're used throughout the world. Currently, we are importing a tremendous amount of these precious metals that are used within our industry. All of this said is that by doing this environmentally sound, which we do in Minnesota, I think that Minnesota is probably as environmentally sound when we do this kind of exploration, when we do this kind of metal processing. We are going to demand the best of the best as we do it, as compared to the rest of the world. The other thing that is going to be coming out of this ultimately is not just the jobs. The jobs are very important, but in addition to that, we are going to help balance, because of the value of these minerals, we are going to help balance that trade deficit that we have. Right now, every time that we import these minerals from Russia, from some of these third world countries and some of the South American countries and the other places in the world that we get these minerals that we as a society, and I don't just mean the United States, but all of society are using for their electronics and everything else, we are taking in this balance of trade by having these minerals within our reach. And currently the expectations are that these mineral deposits, if they are not the first, they are the second largest deposits of some of these minerals in the world. Minerals very much in demand today. And so the balance of trade, those things that are going to affect us, this is a big deal. It is a big deal to the United States, not just northeastern Minnesota. It's a big deal to everybody in this nation. And as we look at the falling dollar, as we look at the implications for some of the economy, this type of thing are things that will ultimately make this nation strong and proud once again there. So, not that we're not proud already, but it will help us.
Thank you, Commissioner Forsman. Quick, Kenula, who made that motion? I know I made the motion. Who supported it?
You did, Mike.
I would like the record to reflect that Commissioner Forsman made the motion, and I would then support that. I apologize. I sometimes get caught up in these things and trying to be respectful of the commissioners' districts. I do know that Commissioner Forsman has spent a great deal of time on both of these projects, and much appreciated, at least by this commissioner, and I'm sure I speak for the board as well. Thank you, Commissioner Forsman. With that said, all those in favor of the agreement, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. The